Hello guys, it's me Stark and I'm here today to talk about the Cavalry Archer meta. Cavalry Archers are one of the most iconic and classic units from the game, and most of the civilizations do have access to this unit. There are of course a few exceptions. For example, we can think about the Mesa civilizations such as Aztecs, Mayans and Incas. They do not have access to this unit, and we also have the Dravidians and Bengalis that actually replace this unit for the Elephant Archer. Taking out these civilizations, all other civilizations do have access to Cav Archers. Obviously, some of them will not have all the upgrades for it, but some others can just play a regular Cav Archer meta during the Castle Age. Even if you do not intend to upgrade or use this unit on Imperial Age, you can still play your Castle Age using this unit. Right there, I did choose a game to explain this meta. The game is being played here between Nikov and Lucho. Both players have a very high elo, and they will obviously not go for word strategies, TC pushes, phosphor rushes. Those guys are always gonna aim and try to execute the meta, the most effective tactic and whatever. Whatever it means. Basically, they're just going to use their best strategies to win games. We do have here the Chinese, so let's make a small analysis here. The Chinese do have access to Cav Archer, Tumbling, which is a great upgrade for your Cavalry Archer to shoot multiple arrows. They also have access to both Armor and Bracer here during the Pure Age, lacking only Parthian Tactics, which gets their Cav Archer with less to armor. And of course we do have Lucho playing as the Persian. The Persian have something going on for their Cav Archers here. What's special about the Persian is that they actually can access Parthian tactics during the Castle Age. So it's possible that you get 4 Pierce Armored Cav Archers during Castle Age. But the downside of it is that the Persians will have no bracer. So once an Imperial Age, this unit should lose its power. So it power spikes during the Castle Age, and later on Imperial Age, that's probably a unit that you do not want to keep going on. But as I said, that's not a problem. So how does this meta works? Usually we are expecting players to go for regular builds here during the Dark Age, and already think about going Scouts. So Scout opening is one of the most popular openings. It allows you to start producing Scouts, ratings, and attacking faster than if you were attacking with like a ranged unit. And as I have said sometimes, the men-at-arm or the militia meta here on the very top elo here falls a bit because players are very excellent on scouting and quick walling, so it's often easy to punish men-at-arm investments here. As you can see, Nikov is going for a stable. He will also be able to invest into other things here, such as the wood upgrade and start to wall. As you can see, he's heavily walling, and since he will have scouts and spearmen available, he will be able to protect his villagers from the early ratings. And the same thing here is being done by Lucho, dropping scouts and going for spearmen. So that's a very common opening for both players. They are doing a very similar game here, one with the Chinese, the other one with the Persians. And of course, after they do that, if they are fully walled, this means that a feudal age push using like scouts and skirmishers or scout and archers or even full scouts is less likely to work, and the reason for that is pretty simple. You cannot just punish and kill a guy that's fully walled. He can just defend himself with extra buildings and even transition into ranged units or add a tower, so it's very difficult to kill a guy on this stage of the game. As you can see, Lucho is fully walled, same for Nikov. Nikov went for one single lumber camp, Lucho went for 2. Both players have invested here into a minimum amount of scouts. As you can see, they have already stopped making scouts. They're both playing with a similar number of scouts and spearmen here, just like barely the minimum, and already going towards a transition here to the Castle Age, where we are about to see the so-called Cav Archer meta. So basically the reason none of these players is going for any kind of feudal age army is that both are fully walled. So even if some of these players tries to overpower the other by placing like extra scouts or extra spearmen, they are only going to delay their Castle Age uptime, which is obviously not what they want to do. As you can see here, Nikov has dropped 2 archer ranges and he's ready to go for the Cav Archer. He has already started to upgrade fletching and so on. Lucho is doing a similar approach here by adding now defensive archer ranges. Lucho has a forward gold, looks like a bit more difficult to defend. He might even be forced to use some of his stone in a defensive way. And once both players are on the Castle Age, there comes the big thing here. They can actually play with like triple archer range and go for like an all-wing Cav Archer, or they can go for a more passive way of playing by dropping only 2 archer ranges, going for the essential upgrades, which is basically Botkin Arrow, so they increase both range and attack of the Cav Archer, and they can start booming. So yes, with the farm that those players have built during the Feudal Age, they can now start to add new town centers. As you can see, Nikov is adding 2 extra town centers, Lucho has already added a second town center, and instead of going for the third one, he is actually going to for the ballistics. So that's a choice that you have to do once you advance to the Castle Age while producing Cav Archers. Do you want to go for ballistics? Do you want to go for extra TCs and a more boom approach? What do you want to play? There's also the scenario where you are actually up against some ranged units, such as crossbowmen or skirmishers. If that is the case, I'd say that both players should actually add an early siege workshop instead of going for the university or even for like a third or secondary TC, and because of these, players can just keep developing their economy and adapting to each one of these situations. So this is the Cav Archer meta. You just open Cav Archers. If your enemy is playing ranged units, you can go for like ballistics if it is the Cav Archer war, or you can add a mangonel if you're talking about a game where you are actively facing off elite skirmishers or crossbowmen. So that's how it works. And of course, once you have the ballistics, you are gonna be able to get some good fights and not allow your opponent to dodge or evade you so easily. And it will also be very helpful for you to be able to raid and kill enemy villagers. So that's basically the idea. As you can see, Lucho is just overwhelming Nikov here because right now he has ballistic, Nikov doesn't. Oh guys, I haven't mentioned it. How do you play with the Cav Archer meta if your opponent is playing with cavalry or camels? Well, instead of going for all the 3 TCs, which you can actually do, you can actually choose to go for monks. Yes, dropping an early monastery will just create like a safe spot where you can always run back to, because then you are gonna be able to kill with your Cav Archers. About the light cavalry, well, they are bravely countered by the Cav Archers, so that's not something that you should be annoyed by. By the way, the meta previously, guy, was actually going for like light cavalry, so the Cav Archer meta was actually an answer to the light cavalry. Players would just do that early game that you guys saw, going for scouts and walls, and then they would actually transition into the light cavalry. But then someone starts doing the Cav Archer, and even with like a lot of different civs, the Cav Archers prove it to be so good. So what are all the aspects that make the Cav Archers that good? First one is mobility. Not only they are a cavalry unit, but you can also boost them with husbandry for most civilizations, so you can just choose what fights to take and what not. If you're facing, for example, an army of crossbows, if your opponent is outnumber you, you just run. If you are outnumbering him, you just use your extra speed to close the gap and get a good fight. The second one is this unit only costs wood and gold. For this reason, you can actually keep spamming the Cav Archers non-stop while developing your economy, since there is no food investment into that. And because of this, you can just go for a heavy boom approach here, and then just keep adding farms around your town centers. As you can see, both players can do the same stuff. Both players are heavily booming. And of course, on this stage of the game, when you have maximized the potential of your Cav Archers with all the upgrades, such as the bloodlines, such as the armor, for example the one that Lucho is taking here, it's just a matter of decision making on how do you want to proceed. Do you want to play a longer castle age? Do you have map control and you want to drop a forward castle? Do you want to transition into like a full Cav Archer approach? Some civilizations might get excellent discounts on the castle age, for example the Huns, for example the Portuguese, and those civilizations might actually want to add like archer range number 3, 4, 5, 6, and just make a big army during the castle age using the Cav Archer. So it truly depends on what is your approach. Do you want to already start trying to counter the enemy Cav Archers by adding elite skirmishers? I don't know, there are many different approaches. Or do you want just to click to Imperial Age and try to play with a bracer on your Cav Archers? Just want to double the bet here, going for an Imperial Middle Age Cav Archer play. For most civilizations that have good Cav Archers, such as the Turks, the Tatars, the Magyars, this can actually be a very good approach here. And they actually have some small power spike thanks to either the cost or cheaper upgrades on the next age. And there you go, guys. As you can see, Nikov has mixed in some rocket cards with his Cav Archer, while Lucho is going for a different approach, going instead for the part and tactics exclusively to the Persians. So every civilization will have something good going on for this meta. The Chinese here has the economy, the Persian have the part and tactics and the fast producing TCs. So that's basically the idea, and that's how you actually play the Cav Archer meta. Going for other units such as knights to support this meta can actually be a situational choice, especially if we're facing off massive siege like scorpions or elite skirmishers. So you can obviously add whatever support unit you need, like a few knights, a few rocket cards, which honestly are my favorite choice here. I think that the rocket cards have a great synergy here with the Cav Archer meta. And as you can see, guys, Lucho is getting like the +4 armor, which will make his Cav Archers very difficult to fight against with Cav Archer only. Nikov is only winning because he has siege and numbers, and for that reason he does choose now to go for elite skirmishers. So we just had a Castle Age Cav Archer meta where players would just boost their numbers while booming, and now they can both go for whatever approach they want. For example, Lucho this game is going for the full Cav Archer mode, going for even extra archer ranges. Nikov is actually going for the elite skirmisher one, and he's just getting more and more map control by camping hills with his siege and adding outposts to see how his opponent is moving. Lucho has this forward stone and forward gold, so as long as Nikov just keep here camping, he's just denying access to these extra resources, which is quite important. Right there we can even see that he went for a longer Castle Age approach, going for a 4 town center, and has switched fully here into elite skirmishers, of course after adding a few more archer ranges. So now he does have siege, a few Cav Archers, and of course elite skirmishers, which can actually counter the enemy Cav Archer. But Lucho is already on the way up to the next stage as the Persian, and right there he can choose to play a different approach. He can choose, for example, to make a full transition to Savar. He can choose to add light cavalry or even hussars to his army composition. So there are many variations according to your civilization. With some of them, as I said, you do want to keep playing with Cav Archers. With some others, that might not be the best choice, and most civilizations can play with this approach, which allows you to boom while just using this mobile unit together with whatever support unit is needed. So this is basically Cav Archer meta. What are some good answers to Cav Archer meta? Since we're talking about that, we need to talk about possible counters and possible answers to that. I think that one possible answer here is going for their direct counter unit, the Elite Skirmisher. Elite Skirmisher is pretty good, and you can already start making the skirmishers during the Feudal Age, so they are truly an option here. Imagine that you were just doing skirmishers during the Feudal Age, and then once you are in the Castle Age, you upgrade the Elite, and the Cav Archers suddenly cannot fight you properly. The problem with the skirmishers is this: they can be easily countered by a few mangonels, and you are just inviting the Cav Archer player to start pushing with mangonels once in Castle Age. So not only you are going to have to make skirmishers, but already think about adding something like redemption monks or mangonels or something else to be able to support your own skirmishers. The other problem with the skirmishers is that, well, they do cost food, so you are actually having to use some farms to sustain the skirmisher production, and that can actually delay a bit your booming, since you have to use a lot of gold to still upgrade the skirmishers with the elite version, with the Botkin arrow, and then the Cav Archer meta can actually prevail and beat you through the economy. And as I said, the Cav Archers do have mobility, so there's no guarantee that you are actually going to be able to force fights with your skirmishers. The Cav Archers can just evade the fights here. As you can see on this, the other counter here, or the other answer that works relatively well against the Cav Archer meta, is going for Scorpions. I think that the Scorpions are a very good counter here to Cav Archers, especially on small numbers, and especially if you can predict their behavior. So if you have a good map for defending, you can just place and start populate the map here with some Scorpions, and they are very good at chasing down enemy Cav Archers, especially after you get ballistics upgrade. The downside of the Scorpions is that, different from the Cav Archers that can act in both attack and defense, you cannot just get your Scorpions to raid your opponent and then get them back home, and they are also a very fragile unit. A small amount of knights, like 2 or 3 units, and also mangonels are actually a nightmare to deal with when you are actually playing with the scorpions. So you are gonna be a bit more static, way too defensive. So I would only recommend for you to defend with scorpions if you have some good bonus on your scorpions, like the Khmer, like the Celt, like the Romans, or if you do have let me say, how can I say that? Or if you do have like an economical advantage on your game, that makes sense for you to just keep playing with the Scorpions. So those are some of the counters. As you can see, both die relatively easy to the mangonels being added here to the Cav Archers. Stark, what about Knights? Knights, armored knights, +2 knights. Knights dominate the game. Are knights a good counter to the Cav Archers? No. No, my friend, they are not. Especially when on higher elos, players are very good on their army control, and there are two reasons that will make the knights not the best choice. The first one is, obviously, in order to have a good Cav Archer meta, as you could see on this game, both players are going to wall their bases here during the feudal age and proceed to just reinforce their bases during the castle age by adding houses behind it. So basically, it will mean that for a knight player to raid, it will be nearly impossible. No one's just gonna play wide open and allow you to raid. The second one is the knights are quite expensive. In order to have good fights against the Cav Archers, you might actually have to invest into a lot of armor, and obviously the Cav Archers can keep harassing you here, and while only costing wood and gold, so eventually you can get outboomed by the knights. One approach that can actually be pretty good is combining a knight opening and already transitioning here into siege and monks, be either scorpions or mangonels, but if you are going for those, I would recommend you to be and to play aggressive, but still seems a bit more difficult to play than going for the regular Cav Archer, which can just defend against the knights by using walls and using monks as a support unit. On this game, for example, Nikov was probably expecting Lucio to try and transition into Savar, perhaps. That's why he even added some monks here to help until he could go for another counter like the Fire Lancer. But still, the monks are also a great addition. They can just keep healing up your Revic of Archers and just convert by knights. So if your enemy has like 8 knights and you have 3 monks, you can suddenly convert like 40% of his strength here in a small fight and really turn the tables. So Cav Archer meta is still here very powerful, even on the higher and especially on the higher elos. So if you do not use this unit, I recommend you to try this meta, and well, good games for you guys.